Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kingdom Life School podcast. We're so glad that you've joined us this time. We really enjoyed being able to put out some of the short podcast episodes during the week-long Kingdom Life School last September 2024. And so we thought we'd try putting out some more episodes and series this year just to be able to keep connecting with you guys and sharing with all of you, because we love to do that. This is the first episode in a new series where we'll be looking at the temple throughout the Bible. And these episodes were actually recorded back during the COVID lockdown. So I think this one is recorded in January 2021. So there'll probably be some references to not being able to meet together. And that's probably why we thought it would be a good subject to talk about at that time, to remind ourselves why we meet together and the reasons for gathering together and sharing life with one another. So I hope you enjoy the conversation that me and Bri have through this, and I'll speak to you again at the end. This is our introduction to the Temple series.
I was thinking a little bit about why talk about the temple? Why does that matter? Because it got knocked down. They tried to rebuild it. Like, do we still, we have our church building, but we don't go to a temple in the same way. So why is that a useful theme for us to think about when we're talking about corporate worship at the minute? And I thought it'd be useful just to very quickly zoom out. Where did that come from and what was it all about? And then over the next few weeks, we'll kind of zoom in a little bit, won't we? And we'll look at some different aspects of it. But so we mentioned a few temples already, just in our little list there. Solomon's temple was really famous. Before that, there was David's tent. Before that, there was Moses' tabernacle. But there was a temple before that, believe it or not. The first temple was the whole earth. God made the earth as a place of meeting between heaven and earth for people to be together with him. And the whole earth filled with the glory of the Lord. And that was temple number one, in a way, a place of meeting where heaven and earth could overlap. And the kind of picture of that was Eden, this beautiful garden, a microcosm, which means like a small example of a bigger picture. So Eden was like a little picture of what it was all supposed to be like, this place of just being together with no boundaries in between. And so when we come to look at the temple a little bit later on, we'll see loads and loads of Eden images coming through. The cherubim, the palm trees, the olive trees, the pomegranates, the fruit, the creatures, all the things that we see in the temple are kind of referring back to Eden images to remind us that it was all about heaven and earth touching, about God and humans walking together and talking and being in relationship. And it's all pointing forward again to a future temple where we would all be one again, where the whole earth could again be God's temple. And so it's when we look at this one image, it's like taking a little snapshot in a big stream of images through time and space that are pointing to Jesus coming to bring that heaven and earth back together, and talking about us being a living temple where we are now the place. We are the walking Eden gardens where heaven and earth can overlap, and God and us can be in relationship and be one. And our kind of mission to restore the first, very, very first temple, which is that the whole earth could be like that. And so we're zooming in on the temple in the Bible just as a way of kind of learning some lessons about that and about our Eden mission to kind of restore the whole earth to be God's temple and all the people in it in relationship with him and enjoying the benefits of Eden. Yeah. So there we go. That's my zoom out.
That's a good intro to corporate worship. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, like you say, we are the temple. It's not necessarily the place that you gather, but it's the people that gather together that are the church are the temple of God, and we are kind of individual parts of the whole. So as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about what the first thing that came to mind was unity when we come together. The very fact that on a Sunday morning in this country, right? So in the UK, on a Sunday morning at kind of, the hours between 9 and probably like 12 in this country, millions of people get together in a place, like at the Lighthouse, we get together at 10:30. We get together at 10:30 at the same place at the same time, and we all experience the same thing, which is, we talk about unity and not uniformity. We already show that unity just by coming together, just by being, just by deciding, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to sing the same worship songs. I'm going to, do all that good stuff, do all that church stuff, which sometimes can, if we're not in the right frame of mind, can be like going through the motions. But if we come ready to give myself fully to what's happening in the moment in this place, to the other people that are gathered, has an incredible impact.
And it's a wonderful thing to think of, that while we're doing that in that slot here, through the wonder of time zones and stuff, and through like thousands and thousands of years of tradition as well, that even when we're not in the right frame of mind or anything, we're playing a part of like a rhythm that sweeps around the globe and has swept through time, that for thousands and thousands of years people have made this choice to let's stop our own rhythm of work and toil and all of that, and we're just going to stop and gather together and turn our eyes on the one and say there's something bigger than all of this. And we're doing it at 10:30, but someone in France is doing it at 10:30 an hour later. Of this, it just goes around the whole globe. That, we're part of something big.
Yeah, bigger than we can imagine. Like you say, as you look through history, I always think when I pray the Lord's Prayer, how many people have prayed this throughout all time at moments of absolute bliss and ecstasy, and at the same time, at the worst moments and the worst times in their lives, it's amazing that we get to join that.
Did you see that this week on the news? I don't know if anyone saw it. They had this guy they were interviewing in Southampton Hospital, and he'd been so poorly with coronavirus, and he thought he wasn't going to make it, and he'd come out the other side, and he was still quite poorly. He still had his one of those CPAP masks on to help him, but he'd turned a corner, and the only response he could find, you could tell it was so unfamiliar to him as well, because it's the kind of thing I'm assuming was in there from childhood, that had been kind of put in there at some point, but he'd put his hands together and his eyes closed, and he was so thankful to have a second chance. He was just reciting the Lord's Prayer again and again, and he was just like, it's just the only way I can think of to just say thank you for another chance. And he didn't know how to pray, but that Lord's Prayer was in there, and it just came out in that moment. And it's like, isn't that beautiful? They're going out on the news.
Come on. Maybe we should pray the Lord's Prayer in a minute. Well, that's so good. Yeah, so we kind of unified in this, and we get to join in this thing that happens all over the world, all through history, and it's great. The second thing I want to look at was Psalm 73, which is a psalm by a man called Asaph in the Psalms, Psalm 73, 7-3. And he was a worship leader in the temple, and they say a skilled singer and musician, a good poet, and I'm sure he did know it. But he's also a seer or a prophet. It also describes him as in the Bible. So he kind of is like David, one of David's kind of right-hand men, kind of a leader in the temple for singing and stuff. And he's writing in Psalm 73. Now, I'm sure we've all had one of those mornings coming up to Sunday or whatever when we gather. And it's like, man, I do not feel like I want to sing anything happy. I want to play the blues.
It's normally when someone starts playing, I'll become even more, and you're like, oh, man.
No, pull the hoodie over, tighten it right up. No, thanks. Anyway, so he starts in Psalm 73. It starts well in verse 1. Truly God is good to Israel, to those whose hearts are pure. But then he goes into his kind of his own little world and what's happening with him. So it starts in verse 2, but as for me, I almost lost my footing, my feet were slipping, and I was almost gone. For I envied the proud when I saw them prosper despite their wickedness. They seem to live such painless lives. Their bodies are so healthy and strong. They don't have troubles like other people. They're not plagued with problems like everyone else. And so he kind of comes into this thing of everyone else. I am a worm. Why is this happening to me?
It's funny reading this after like having a weekend with Steve and Wendy, because you can imagine, you know, Steve talks about like, there is something uniquely wrong with me. And he's like, let's just laugh at that because that's totally a lie. But you could laugh at each one of these. These would be great. Like, they never get sick. You know, yeah, right. But it feels like that at the time, right?
Right, you're totally in your own like rubbish, and you're kind of looking around. Everyone's, you know, you're looking on, you're scrolling through Facebook. Everyone's doing amazing things, you know, and then you're on Twitter, and everyone's arguing, and you're like, I can't do this. And so he goes through that through that up to like verse 16. Which says, so I try to understand why the wicked prosper, but what a difficult task it is, because he can't work it out. He's got no idea. So, and then it all turns in this psalm in verse 17, and he says, then I went into your sanctuary, O God, and I finally understood the destiny of the wicked. And so he talks about the wicked for a bit. In an instant they are destroyed. You know, when you arise, O God, you will laugh at their silly ideas as a person laughs at dreams in the morning. And then in verse 21 he realizes, then I realized that my heart was bitter and that I was torn up inside. I was so foolish and ignorant. I must have seemed like a senseless animal to you, yet I still belong to you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, leading me to a glorious destiny. Whom have I in heaven but you? I desire you more than anything on earth. My health may fail and my spirit may grow weak, but God remains the strength of my heart. He is mine forever. And there's a couple of verses at the end. But it was when he went into the sanctuary and suddenly he hears the singing. He hears the music. He sees his friends. They're playing their hearts out. There's some kind of rocking guitar solo going on. There's the choirs, the gospel choirs going, and he realizes, hang on. Let's put this back into perspective. He begins to find a perspective through being with other people. You know, it's like they say, you know, you're only a person through kind of other people. I cannot be a thing on my own. We are so interconnected that doesn't really work. And he begins to realize, oh, hang on a minute. This isn't me. This isn't how I'm meant to think. This is how I'm meant to be. Something reminds me of that. And it kind of reminds me of the Hope last week, you know. You come out of it thinking, yeah, come on, man. And we've all met together online. You know, we've gathered in the same digital space, you know, online at the same time to hear the same thing and experience, and looking at the chat on the Saturday night and stuff. It was amazing, you know, people getting new houses at that very moment, and we heard about it at that moment, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. And Steve and Wendy encouraging us, and you come out of it and you just begin to remember these things of, oh no, hang on, this is God, this is who I am. I am hopeful, I am joyful, this is what I'm called to. This is something I'm meant to carry all the time. And sometimes we just, on our own, we can get a bit, but meeting in places like this online, you know, meeting physically again whenever we can will be amazing, because we can strengthen each other, and actually it kind of causes some kind of a focus for us. You know, we go through the week and we're being, you know, mum and dad and someone at work, and some people are now homeschooled, they're being a teacher as well at the same time, and we have to organise how we're getting food. You know, it's all changed, and oh no, I have to stay up till the only slot I can get is like between 9 and 11 at night, and all of that stuff, you know.
We had one of those this week.
And all of this stuff you're trying to organise, and then you come together at this one time in this one place, and it brings your focus in together, and you forget about the phone, hopefully, and you forget about all of these other distractions, and we can focus on what's important, that I'm here, that God is with me. There are, you know, people we're hanging out together right now, and we get to do that, and that is so important, you know. And also the training that comes through that. We get trained up by being with other people. We learn, you know, iron sharpens iron and all of that kind of stuff. I saw a great quote from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "You may worship God anywhere at any time, but the chances are that you will not do so unless you have first learned to worship him somewhere, in some particular place, at some particular time." And so there's a learning from one another. It's not just the person at the front, it's the being with one another and hearing each other's stories. And
it's a really big part of the Eden mission as well, that if you think about ambassadors, when they get sent out to places, they have an embassy. They need like a home base to they're going out into a different culture, but if they were in that all the time, they could if I was going to France as an ambassador and I was just in French culture, French language, all of that all the time, I'd probably become more and more French. But if I had a British embassy that I was based in, then I would keep hold of so much Britishness. And then when I go into French culture, I'd be carrying that with me. And I really feel like that's a big part of what the local church is to be. It's an embassy of another culture in a foreign land, where we come in and we learn how to worship, how to not get swamped in Twitter and work and homeschool and all of that. We pop back into the embassy for a little while and we get soak in that culture of heaven again. And the church is supposed to be a representative of the culture of heaven, the culture of Eden. And then we can take that out with us. We're kind of empowered and filled up and ready to go and represent that culture wherever we go.
There you go. That was the first episode of our Temple series. In there I mentioned the online conference that we'd hosted the week before, and as part of that conference we had Steve and Wendy Backlund join us for our Friday night session, so that would be brilliant to check out. It's all still up there on YouTube if you go to the Kingdom Life School YouTube channel, or just search Kingdom Life School Hope 2021. That will take you to the playlist where all the videos of that conference are. It was fantastic to do and really worth checking out, so do that. I hope you've enjoyed our first episode, and I'll see you next time. Love you all. Bye.